Hi everyone, welcome back to economics. And I've been practicing a lot with this video to try to make it better for you. I also realize I'm not looking at the camera, but instead I'm looking at myself on the screen. Sorry about that. Maybe that just has to come with me being old and wondering how I look on the screen. Or maybe something different. But anyway, welcome back to economics. This one you can see I have entitled this episode. So it is called What is the Economy? Now I have those air quotes on there because I want to tell you a lot of people think they know what the economy is and they do not. Now what's more fun than taking a know-it-all, a great big know-it-all that just makes your life miserable? What is more fun than being able to show that person up? Now, that is one reason you want to be a well-rounded person in college, isn't it? So that you can show up people who think they know more than you and maybe just kind of don't, or people who are so puffed up in their own importance. So we are going to, in this lesson, today's lesson, What is the Economy? We are going to learn how to do that. So we will be, with that kind of lead in, we can't wait to begin, right? Let's get going. Okay, so you've heard people say all the time, probably, especially since the Great Recession. Again, I love air quotes in this class, and you'll see why. It's to debunk all of the misconceptions that we have regarding the economy and things of that nature. So this one is, you've heard people say during the Great Recession that, oh, I'd be all right if the old economy wasn't so bad, or, if this old economy would get better, then everything would just be all right. How many of you have wondered, do these people know what they're saying when they say the old economy? They talk about it like it's an entity, like it's just some creature, Bigfoot or something. Right, too. Not the case. But we're going to see what the economy is today, how it works, and hopefully end up debunking some of those, and then you'll be able to correct them, which will be fun. All right, so let's get started. Beginning with our notes. All righty then. So here we are. So the first thing with the economy, let's talk a little bit more about it. So the economy is determined by the decisions and actions of four groups. And we call these groups the components of demand. Okay, so that's it. So the economy is determined by the decisions and actions of four groups, and we call these groups the components of demand. So we will start with the first one. And the first one is the best one, as you will soon see, because it is us. We call this group households and also consumers. And we abbreviate it with an HHD. Now, I realize all this is not showing up on your board just yet. I think I've got it down. I know when, but when it does show up, you will see this. So we call it HHD. Now these, the HHD, the households, they like to spend money, or we like to spend money. So that is called consumer spending, and it's abbreviated by capital C. So there you go. Now we spend money, we have a goal in mind for spending money. And that goal is, as George Carlin likes to say, and people point out that some of you don't get my reference with George Carlin, but you can Google George Carlin stuff, watch that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But anyway, we love our stuff, and we like to spend money for various reasons, but the main reason in economics, we have a goal in our spending, which is to maximize our utility. So goal is to maximize utility. Now in economics, the word utility, when we refer to that, we're talking about the satisfaction derived from consumption. And consumption is consumer spending. So the satisfaction derived from consumption, that is utility. You don't have to remember that. It's just fun to say. Okay, so when you're consuming goods and services, you start with just one unit. Now, one unit can be something like a slice of pizza. Probably not a whole pizza because you're going to consume pizza one slice at a time. Okay, like a candy bar might be a whole candy bar because you're going to eat that. Most people would eat the whole candy bar at a time. So a unit is just what you consume one at a time. So with a slice of pizza, you will get some utility. You eat the pizza and you enjoy it. You start to feel full, tastes good. You're getting some utility with that. Also, though, when you consume a second slice of pizza, you will get some extra utility on top of the utility you first got. That is called marginal utility. And marginal utility is satisfaction derived from consuming one additional unit. All right, so that's your marginal utility. So in economics, whenever we use the term marginal, what we're talking about is one more. So you might have the marginal cost involved. If you're producing one more unit, there will be a marginal cost. If you sell that unit, there will be a marginal revenue. All those things are marginal, and it just means one more or one additional. So marginal utility, that's the satisfaction derived from consuming one additional unit. Now, as you continue to consume units, and there may be somebody out there listening to this that can eat a whole entire pizza and enjoy every last drop of it. But most people don't. So as you continue to consume, let's use pizza for the example. As you continue to consume additional slices of pizza, you still get some utility, but you will begin to get less and less as it goes on. The third or fourth slice is not going to taste as good as that first slice. You're already starting to get full. You may be getting a little sick to your stomach, all those things. So your marginal utility tends to decline the more you consume. That is true with all products, and it is called the law of diminishing marginal utility. And the law of diminishing marginal utility, it tells us that as more units or service, can't forget those services, are consumed, there is less utility per unit. There we go. So as more units are consumed, there's less utility per unit. For college students, I like to use the example of beer. You can tell if you're a beer drinker, when you drink one, it tastes really good. You enjoy it. You love it. You're getting a lot of utility from it. The more and more you drink, the less utility you get, right? Now, you may say to yourself also with different types of goods, you say, okay, there's some goods that I pay for and I don't get any utility from it. So this isn't always true. Well, it is always true. And here's how I know. Because let's say there's a bill you want to pay, or you get a speeding ticket. So you get a speeding ticket and you say, well, I'm paying for that, but I'm not getting any utility from the speeding ticket. Well, keep in mind, it's satisfaction, but satisfaction isn't always this feeling of euphoria. So don't think that for a moment. Satisfaction just means that you've completed something, you're satisfied. So once you pay the speeding ticket, you're satisfied because you know that you got that off your chest. You've got that out of the way. You're not going to lose your license. You're not going to have a bench warrant out for your arrest. None of those bad things are going to happen. You may pay your light bill and you think, okay, man, that bill is expensive. I don't want to pay it. Or car insurance. That one always gets me every month. I pay that car insurance bill and I just about lose my mind. So you may have that. However, I hate to pay that bill, but I have some utility to know if someone hits us or if we hit someone else that we are covered and that we're taken care of. So there is some satisfaction even from the bills you don't want to pay. Now you have this utility, this consumption depends a lot on your income. So for your income, you can spend it or save it. So your income can be spent or saved. Now, if you save it, it'll go in the bank, or in, maybe you might put it in bonds or in the stock market, any of those things. And that's all fine. That's all well and good. But right now we're talking about consumption, so we're going to talk a bit about how it can be spent. So you have types of goods, or well, let's say it some way else. How do I say it here? 3 choices to spend your income. Okay, 3 choices to spend your income. Let's do it right here. Here we go. First choice. You can spend it on services. And services are when you're having others do things for you, like if you hire a Lyft or an Uber driver, if you go out to eat, if you get a haircut. All those things are services. It's when somebody else is doing something for you. And there's the shocker. We pay, of our disposable income, 55%, so just a little bit over half of it, we spend on services. So we like having other people do stuff for us. We like that. All right, second, probably because we're very busy. I mean, very, very busy. All right, so the second one, and this is the one you'd expect to have the most on, is non-durable goods. And non-durable goods, those are the goods that are for immediate consumption. So non-durable goods, those are the ones you're going to consume them right away. Groceries, putting gas in your car, you know, deodorant and toothpaste, things like that. So anything, this is for immediate consumption. You're going to get that good and you're going to start using it. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to use a whole thing of deodorant in one shot. Some people might need that, but the majority of us are going to have it last. But it's for immediate consumption, meaning you're going to start using it and it's going to be used fairly quickly. All right, and then the third one, the last one. Now we spend 19% on those non-durable goods. That doesn't sound like very much, does it? If you're talking about your groceries and your gasoline, those are some those are some necessities that you have to have, and yet we're sitting here, we're not spending as much as we would think on there. So we're more into these services, aren't we? We're more into having other people. So instead of buying food for ourselves, we're going to go out to eat. Instead of buying coffee, we're going to get some at Starbucks or McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever's your pleasure. So this is telling us a lot about our society, isn't it? Telling us a lot about that, but that's all right. And then finally, the last one is our durable goods. And these are goods that are designed to last longer than 3 years. So it lasts longer than 3 years. Cars, appliances, actually technology is supposed to last longer than that. We all know it doesn't, but things of that nature. Now, somebody asked about clothing. Clothing goes in your non-durable goods because really a lot of people keep clothing. There's some gray areas here on these classifications. A lot of people keep clothing. Some people may say, well, if I buy a really nice, somebody who's going to pay $1,000 on a Burberry trench coat, and I realize I'm lowballing here. Somebody who's going to pay that, yeah, they expect that to last longer than 3 years. Certainly do hope so. And the people at Burberry expect it to last longer than 3 years. But most clothing as a rule would go in the non-durable goods because you don't expect it to last. It may not. Durable goods, again, carpet, things that just last longer than 3 years, appliances and such. Now, here's the thing about them. These durable goods here are, I tried to use that. That does not look good, does it? Okay. So these durable goods, they are very expensive, aren't they? If you're going to buy a washing machine and a dryer, that's going to be a lot more expensive than buying a shirt and a pair of jeans. So these durable goods, it's not something that people are going to replace very often. I mean, for me, my washer and dryer, I keep them until they break. So usually about 8 or 9 years, if not longer. So these durable goods last longer. I keep my car longer than a lot of people too. I keep it until it falls apart on the road. So maybe not the safest thing, but it's how I roll. Pardon the pun, or don't. Either way. So durable goods, so it's lasting longer than 3 years. Those are more expensive. So that number is very important. So when we look and see the percentage for durable goods, right now it's roughly at 9 to 10%. I've heard it's going up. The very cool thing about that durable goods percentage going up is when people are spending that kind of money, if they're spending more money on the more expensive things, what does that tell us about the economy? And I won't wait on you to answer because I know you can't, but think of in your own mind. What does that tell us about the economy? It tells us that people feel good about things, doesn't it? They have this money and they're going to buy these appliances, buy a new car, move into a home, different things like that, model their home, add a deck onto the back, whatever it is they want to do, but they feel good about it because they're willing to spend that money. If they're hoarding cash, is what we call it, they're keeping their cash, just hanging on to it in case they need it because they're afraid they're going to need it, then that indicates that people do not feel good about the economy. For rainy day for the future. We're talking about people that are actually hoarding their cash because they're afraid that, something terrible is about to happen. Those are the people, they don't feel good about the economy, and so their goods right there, they're not going to be investing or spending in the durable goods. So that's an important number. Now, another reason that number is important is because when those are going up, those are usually, that means more manufacturing jobs. So that also means that more jobs are coming, which is a good thing. All right. Normally the part where I ask any questions, but we're not going to do that here. I'm not even going to make that bad joke. Okay, so then that's the first component of demand. So let's come down over here and get to the second component of demand, and that is businesses. That's our businesses. All right, so the businesses also spend. They spend money on payroll, equipment, physical capital, all kinds of stuff like that. Pretty much they buy all those resources. So businesses, they're the ones that buy all those resources that you learned about last lesson when we take it to market. So businesses, they spend business spending, and we call that, they spend their money business spending, and we call it investment. Now you cannot tell what that letter is. That is a capital I. Okay, so just kind of note that for yourself somehow so you realize it's a capital I. Now keep in mind here, a lot of students run into confusion on an exam. When they see investment, they're thinking about saving your money by investing in the stock market or investing in a business, or which actually might fall there, something like that. But keep in mind when we say investment, we're talking about business spending. Okay, business spending. So keep that in mind for yourself. All right, the second one, the third one. Now, a lot I could tell you about the structure of the business community, but to be honest, that is covered in your environment of business class. And so a lot of students were feeling like it was getting too repetitive. So if you have not had environment of business and would like to know more about the structure of the business community, we can go over that. Just let me know. Via email or whatever. Government, that's the next component of demand. And government, of course, they spend money too, don't they? A lot of money. Called government spending. And it is abbreviated with, capital G. The government spending, a capital G. And there's mainly three things that the government will spend their money on. So the first thing is public goods. These are goods that benefit the entire public. Public goods benefit the entire public, but it's impossible or near impossible to set a user fee. So for example, police protection. That's something that's harder to set up, to say, well, um, you called the police twice this month, you didn't call them any, so we're going to bill you and not you. Can't do that. So public goods benefit the entire public. All right, the next one, externalities. And externalities, these are third-party costs and benefits. So if it's things like if somebody throughout doing business causes pollution and the government comes in and fixes that. Now, a lot of times they will bill that company for the cleanup. Like, for example, when it was BP, wasn't it, a few years ago, had an oil spill in the Gulf Coast, and that really harmed the tourism industry along that coast. So so the government came in and cleaned it up, and that was the third party costs and benefits right there. Externalities. That was a negative externalities. A positive one might be, for example, if the government providing vaccines to children whose parents can't afford it or are not insured, and then that helps to eradicate disease for the rest of us. Okay, so that's the externalities. And finally, the last one, transfer payments. And that name comes from the term transfer of wealth. And transfer of wealth, what we're talking about there is our welfare and other public assistance. So those are the transfer payments. So that's how the government spends money. Our final component of demand is the rest of the world. It is our international component. Now I'm going to just briefly go over a few things because we have a whole unit on international towards the end. But for right now, that's the rest of the world. All right, now the rest of the world, we have exports, capital X, and exports are goods produced here and sold in other countries. Those are exports. Probably already knew that, but humor me. The other is imports, abbreviated capital M. And these are goods produced in other countries and sold here. Exports and imports. Now we keep up with that. We like to show, and you'll see why in a moment, I'll show you why, but everyone likes for the exports to be greater than the imports. You'll see why in a moment, but that is the ideal according to the economy. So what we look at, we calculate something called a trade balance. And for the trade balance, we calculate X minus M. And that's the trade balance. So we want it bigger, the X to be bigger. Now what we're hoping for is a trade surplus which is when X is greater than M. That's what we're hoping for. What we have and what we have had for decades is a trade deficit. And the trade deficit is when M is greater than X. Now, a lot of reasons why, one of the main reasons why that may be the case, when you have to translate these numbers, just like translating languages, you have to translate the numbers. And to do that, you calculate something called the exchange rate. And the exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another. Well, I'll tell the story of this foreign exchange student that I knew. He was staying with a family that was a friend of my daughter's, and he loved to, her grandparents used to hire them to work, and he loved it. The reason why he loved it is from his home country. He was from Budapest, and in Budapest, $1 is worth 7,000 of his currency. So every dollar he earned, he takes it back over there and he gets 7,000. So yeah, he thinks that's a lot of money. So when he makes $10 over here, that doesn't sound like much to us. We're like, that's not very much at all. He takes it over there and he's got 7,000 or 700. Let's see, 70. Anyway, a lot of money. Sorry, it's late and I haven't had supper yet, so bear with me. But yes, so he's got all of that. So that is so the exchange rate, that falls into play on why that is. That's why the trade deficit, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers a lot of people. Also, the economy is so intertwined, different countries, that it just doesn't seem to, and it's been this way forever, and our economy is still the largest in the world. So not really a lot to keep me up at night. Alrighty, so I hope you got all that. If you didn't, feel free to watch again and again and again. Okay, so we have okay, so right now we have C plus I, whoops, C plus I plus G plus X minus M. That's what we have right now. We have consumer spending, business spending, government spending, and the trade balance. And when we add it all together, we get the economy. All right, so that's it. So we get the economy. That's how we do that. Now the economy also has another name. Gross domestic product. Gross domestic product, or GDP. And what that means, GDP is the value of all final goods and services produced within the U.S. So the value of all final goods and services produced within the U.S. Now GDP is measured quarterly, it grows over time, and it looks something like this. All right, let's see how well I do with that. Okay, pardon me for a moment. I just kind of lost it. I'm trying to use this new tablet thing that I've gotten, and it's not quite Working. Ah, here we go. Okay. I think this is going to get it. All right. Still can't draw a straight line, can I? All right. That's all right. We will get there, won't we? Okay. So we have GDP on that side and time right there. Okay. So we're going to start right here. And this one, it doesn't matter if it's a little. And it kind of looks like all right. Let's let it come down a little bit more right there because I'm going to. All right. So it looks like that. Now, if you look, you'll see that it continues to go up over time. So you see it's continually increasing over time. So that does go up. Now here's something fun. Do you remember how back during the Great Recession, people were talking about how we've been in this recession, it's lasted so long, it's going to turn into a depression? Well, that's where they're wrong. Now we're going to really get, now this where we're going to embarrass some people. Because a recession is a decrease in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters, which is roughly 6 months. So that's a recession. We have not had in this Great Recession GDP decreases more than 6 months. We had GDP decreases for exactly 6 months back in 2008. So it definitely was not this huge recession that lasted years and years and years. Didn't happen. All right, not happening. We had 2 consecutive quarters. Okay, for it to be a depression, and mind you, we have only had one of these in our entire economic history. For it to be a depression, you would have to have a recession lasting 2 or more years. So a depression lasting 2 or more years. So you can see why. Okay, if we're going to be generous, we'll say we see why these people were saying that, but they were showing their economic illiteracy because this was not a depression. GDP did not go down for 2 or more years. Let's look right here. I'm going to use this little pointer thing. So what we have, let's say this is it right here. So it goes down. So see, you're going down on GDP and you hit this big spot. Now they're thinking a depression. What they're thinking is a depression. They're looking in terms of amounts. You know, they're looking and how big were the effects. But you've got to look at time. So instead of dollars, look at time. So here's what it is. Look at this. So it's going, whoop. All right, so see, it's going up. Now what happened, if you start off right here, and then you go fall down here, GDP starts to go back up. You're right here. So the experts may say, you know, the economists like me are going to say, okay, great, we're in a recovery. GDP, you know, the economy's improving and we're doing well. And then you're going to look at them and say, I don't feel any better. I'm not doing well. Well, that's because you started out up here and now you're down here. So just because we're out of the recession, right at this point, we are out of the recession and you know, we're in a recovery, but it's taking us a while. It's just like you've fallen in a pit and you're trying to climb out. It's taking you a while to get back up here. Now we've gotten up here, and in fact, we'll even go higher. I didn't draw this exactly right, but it'll go even higher than we were. See, we're increasing even more. So we're doing even better than we were before. But we fell down to this pit and we have to climb out. And so it takes us a minute to get it back up to where we were. The folks that lost their home in the recession, for them, okay, yeah, so I'm in an apartment now. Yes, that's better than being out on the street, living in a car or a shelter or staying with family, but it's still not as good as the nice house that I had before. So yeah, I'm recovering, I'm getting better, but I'm still not back where I was. That's why it felt like a great recession. But technically, by textbook definition, it was not a recession. I mean, it was a small recession and a depression. It's just the recovery took longer. All right. Now, what we're in right now, what we mostly have, which is good that we mostly have this, is called expansion. And expansion, that is, I want to make sure I get the definition the way I will put it on the exam. A period of continual, that's the word I was trying to read in my notes, continual GDP growth. All right. So a period of continual GDP growth is an expansion. That's what we're in right now. If you will look, for the most part, we've had expansions. Now we can have a dip in GDP for a month, 2 months, something like that. When that happens, it's not a recession unless it is for 2 consecutive quarters. So we, like these right here, we can have these little dips. And, it'll feel bad for a minute. It'll hurt for a minute, just like when you get a bee sting or prick your finger, and some of them might hurt more than others, but it's technically not a recession. Certainly not a depression. So that actually should be a little bit better for you. Now, here's something else. Look, this is simple mathematics. Look right here. You see the economy, gross domestic product, on one side, and you see all this about our spending on the other. So if you're going to, if the economy is going up or down, now when we say there's a recession, a decrease, that means, all right, I drew you an arrow to see, that's when the economy is decreasing. So if there's a recession, GDP is going down. When GDP goes down, that means that something, I'll do those little brackets there, something on this side is also going down. So if something's happening on one side, it means something's happening on the other. Right? Something's happening on one side means something equal is happening on the other. In this case, if the economy, if there is a recession and GDP is decreasing, that means somebody over here or a collection of somebody's are not spending money. They're not spending their money. Now let's see, let's go down here and see how much do they have to spend. All right, so C, let's see if I can write it up here. Consumers, let's see. Let's, all right, here we go. All right, let's write it a little bit smaller. So right here, consumers, we spend 70%. All right, so we are the big spenders here, 70%. We'll just do it this way. Plus, so businesses spend 19%. That's still, that's a good bit, not as much as 70. We are definitely, as consumers, we are the driving force of the economy, but still, businesses are pretty good there. All right, government is 16%. And then the trade deficit, as I said, it is a trade deficit. All right. So you can write that however it makes sense to you, but that's how it shapes up. Now, if you look, this right here, the C and I, C plus I, those are the ones that really, really tend to affect, right? Those are the ones that will have the biggest impact on the economy. Okay, those are the ones that have the biggest impact on the economy, and that's because of those huge numbers right there. All right, so I'm going to draw this little model to show you how. Okay, so this model is called, this was the one I was practicing because this is going to be either really good or really bad the way I draw it. This is called the circular flow model. So the circular flow model, and what it does, circular flow model demonstrates an interaction between groups. Okay, so it demonstrates the interaction between the groups. So right up here, this will show you how they all work. So right up here we have, all right, let's put, actually we'll start over here to the side. So right here, these are households. So we have households over here, and we have businesses right there. So businesses, they like to make things for us to buy, and they take them to the product market. Households, we want to buy those things. We need money to do that. So we were just talking about, we sell our resources, right? Resources are what we use to make money. Businesses buy them to make the goods and services. So that's in the resource market. All right, so here we go. So what happens? All right, what happens right here? All right, so we have our households. They take their resources to the resource market, and then the businesses buy them. They to make products to go to the product market that we purchase right there. So see, that's going in a circle for all the goods. Now, when we purchase those, we pay for them. So I'm going to put dollar signs right there on these outer arrows. So we pay for the products. That's our consumer spending, which goes to the businesses in terms of revenue. So the businesses make money. As for our resources right there. And it comes back to us as income. So there you can see how that works. That's how the circular flow model demonstrates the interaction between the groups. So what we have here, so you see, we depend on them for the jobs. They depend on us. They depend on us for, oh, sorry. Give me 1 second. Y'all write that down. While y'all are copying that, I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I know that's a little ratchet of me, and I apologize. But I didn't want to send you 5 million recordings, and my battery is about gone, so I went to get the charger. Okay, there we go. We should be in good shape now. All righty. Because we don't have much more to finish up on this session, so I didn't want to send you, 5 million recordings like I did before. Okay, so the product market right there, so the goods and services. Now, here's the problem with the Great Recession, and here's what happens with that. Okay, so what happens there? All right, when something happens, when there is a recession, what will happen is households, for some reason or another, maybe usually what happens to start this is that there is this big influx of debt. Okay, so there's a big influx of debt, and what will happen is households, because they sit back and realize they're in debt. Now, before the Great Recession, households were in debt to the tune of, for every dollar they had coming in, they had $1.36 going out. So that's not sustainable for long. Eventually, you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to cut back on your spending so you can pay off some debt. So what we have, they're cutting back on their spending, which means businesses were not getting a lot of revenue. Now, normally what happens during this time, what happens is banks will look right here in the middle. Banks will go to the financial markets. All right, so there's your banks. I mean, not banks. Businesses will go to the financial markets. So businesses go to the financial markets, and that's hard to see, isn't it? But that's what that says. Businesses will go to the financial markets, and what they will do, they will borrow. So they get some money from the financial markets to borrow. They use that money. They use that money to shore up, to make up for this lack of revenue. So once they use the money, they make up for this lack of revenue, and then they, they are able to continue to purchase the resources there. So this part of the circle stays intact. And so that will keep us. So that's when you have those little dips in GDP that don't necessarily constitute a recession, or when you have a recession that does not last very long. Now, what happened here instead, we had things called adjustable rate mortgages. And so what that meant is that your interest rate could just increase overnight. So as a homeowner, what would happen is that you would, as a homeowner, you might, one month you would owe, your house payment, I'm just going to pick a number, would be $1,000 a month. The next month, your interest rate adjusts up. What happens is that your payment becomes $1,500 or $1,600 a month. Most homes, most households cannot sustain that. Most households can't just come up with an extra $500, $600 a month like that. And I'm using those numbers because the people that I talked to, friends of mine who went through that, that was what their number was. So then households in that case would go to the financial markets and try to borrow and try to do something to fix this. But the financial markets, they were kind of, they were tapped out too. They were experiencing this. This was something that was going on with them. This was harsh right there. So they could not help. They could not help businesses. They could not help households. So we didn't have that. When that happens, businesses who are trying to avoid, because businesses aren't the big bads that we think. They don't want to hurt people. They don't want to, they don't want to lay people off because they don't want to have to start retraining and all that stuff with people. So, but in this case, so they try to avoid that if at all possible because it hurts their long run strategy. Money, but that hurts my long run strategy. So what happens but this case, they had no choice. They had to do that, which meant no income. And again, households still, that made this problem even worse and it kept going. So how do we get out of it? Well, what we ended up doing was exactly what exactly what I was telling you. If you're in a pit, you just climb your way out slowly but surely, and that's what they did there. That's what we did, and it's taken us a while. And you saw from the graph that I drew a minute ago, the GDP over time graph, you can see that it just took a minute to do that. It took a while. And while we were doing that, we were climbing out, and it did take a minute. Okay, so what we have, so you have the C plus I plus G plus X minus M, GDP. I'm putting that back up there. So what you can see is you would have, so what you had going on, rather, let's do it this way. So what you had going on there, you had on this side, you had a lot right here in this section. So you had a lot going on right there going down. I know my arrow is not very pointy. There, we'll make it a little bit pointier, but it was going down, and that caused a big drop in GDP. So this part right here, that's why. If you add those numbers together, 70 plus 19 is going to get you close to 90%. That's the majority of GDP right there. That's all coming from this group. So with that in mind, you know that when something happens in this group, this is the group to pay attention to, and they are codependent on one another. You can see up here, if businesses don't provide us with the jobs, we don't have the money to spend. Ironically, they need the money that we spend to provide us with the job. It works. It's a beautiful thing. This is one of those great times when the economy, everything works together, and it's a beautiful thing. So yes, people are selfish. You look at it. Households are selfish. We want money to spend on goods and services. We don't necessarily care about the businesses. I mean, yeah, you have a job where you care about what's going on. I care about my job. I care about students. But also businesses, I mean, maybe the businesses out for themselves. Well, yes, that's true. But that is a good thing, and it helps you because the more money they make, then they're not just going to sit on it and hang on to it. They're going to invest it. We already know what investment means, right? Business spending. That means they're going to spend the money, and what are they going to spend it on? Right here, babe. They're going to spend it right here, which is going to keep this circle going. And the more the circle goes around and round, the better off you will be and I will be. Okay, it is a beautiful thing. The economy, this is one of the few times when being selfish is a good thing. You know, everybody's acting out for themselves, and it works for all of us. All right. Okay, so that's it. So that's lesson 2. I did not keep up with the time, so I'm not sure until it sends me the recording. I won't know exactly how long I kept you here for. But this is everything that's going to be on. You've got an exam coming up, and so this is what's going to be on that. I'm going to post study guide, practice questions, all those things for you. And as always, if you have any questions, give me a shout. All right. So enjoy. Have a great evening. It's evening for me. You may watch this in the morning. If so, have a great morning, great day, and I will see you next time.